The proper response is ook ook.
What are your table? That's what I So apparently they've started recording, so I guess that means we have to act like adults again.
Oh, damn it. I did actually prepare.
They started that now? No, they started that a while ago, so...
Yeah, that's called the outtakes.
I don't have to see myself on video. I am fine being on video. I just don't want
That's
to ever
an
see
awesome
it.
drinking game. We should make you be on video.
No. Hi, Jenny.
I did prepare, actually, by being completely unprepared in another panel just to use the same questions. No one will know.
They're gonna know. They're gonna know.
Do you want to pick the spiel?
I can do it. I've got this spiel down.
I don't.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this. We are doing Hijinks, Heists, and Capers, I think is the name of it. Please remember to silence your cell phones. If you need to take a call, take it outside. And
All
this
the way
year-
outside of the lobby.
Yes, all the way to the lobby, and otherwise please put your phones on silent.
The charity this year is the Arthritis Foundation, and if you don't know, DragonCon will match up to $125,000. We want DragonCon to pay. We want them to pay a lot. And the best way to do that is to deposit money to the charity foundation, so DragonCon has to cough up the money. Okay.
Okay, welcome to Heists and Hijinks, Crime and Punishment. I think that feels very, very self-explanatory. We are here today to teach and entertain, and I didn't ask this at the other panels, but I actually want to ask it for this one. How many people in the audience are aspiring authors or little baby authors? Okay, how many people are just here to see if we're going to be funny? How many people are just in here because it's not crowded and you just really, really, really need to be away from others? Okay, and how many people are here really just to learn, but you don't care, you're readers and you like our books? Okay, these are our favorites.
You didn't ask how many people want to learn how to do crime.
No, I assume
I thought
that's
this was a
everyone.
how-to
I
panel.
assume that's everyone. Your cosplay is amazing.
Yes, it is. Wow.
So okay, I am Gini Koch. I write the Alien Cat and Kitty Cat series for Doll Books. I also write under a variety of other pen names and in all lengths and genres, and I have a lot of heists, hijinks, crime, and punishment in everything I write. I will be your moderator today, totally prepped and prepared. I just want to mention that basically all authors, we consider that we lie for a living. Just saying. And I'm going to have my panelists introduce themselves, starting with Stuart.
Hi everybody, I'm Stuart Jaffe.
He's got it.
I project, but hi everyone, I'm Stuart Jaffe. I'm the author of numerous books, way more than I can count. But I'm best known as the author of the Max Porter Paranormal Mysteries, which have plenty of crime and some punishment.
I'm Tony Sarrecchia, the creator of the Harry Strange radio drama, supernatural thriller, lots of crime, lots of punishment. And I also write the Lady Sherlock Mysteries, which is an audio drama that will be available to the public next year.
I'm Mel Todd. I write urban fantasy, science fiction, fantasy, basically anything you can think of that is not horror.
And you're awesome. I'm Griffin Barber. I write mostly science fiction, alternate history, and from my very first short story was kind of a heist to my more recent short stories. I've had a lot of heists. I also have 20 years behind me as law enforcement, as a police officer in San Francisco, California, which I've retired from. Very happy about that. But so I have a little bit of the punishment side in there, and I also am enamored of heists.
And I'm Jamie Garner. I write as J.D. Garner and Amelia Quantrill. I am a professional author of 20-some novels and an editor of hundreds. And crime and punishment kind of go hand in hand with a lot of the books that I write.
Okay. So, first question, and we're going to start with Stuart and go down, and then on my next question we're going to start with Jamie and come back in a very soothing wave-like motion. Why do you like writing this stuff. I enjoy it because it's fun and I can make things more exciting and more interesting for me and my characters. Stuart, why do you do it?
Plenty of reasons, but I'll pick one. Is simply as a writer, there's a very good bone structure to a crime story that you can go so many different directions with. But I do find in any art form, but certainly in writing, that having limitations will make your creativity better. If you just have, I'm writing a fantasy novel, that could be anything, and you will spend hours, days, stuck going, well, it could be this, it could be this. But if you're writing something, a crime story, there's a wide variety, but it's a little bit narrower, and you're given a bit of a roadmap. So as a writer, there's one reason.
Tony?
Yeah, that's a good reason too. That why I like adding in the mystery and crime. With mystery, and generally with mystery, I outline more than ever. The other stuff I don't outline as much because
Stop jumping ahead.
I'm sorry. There are because there are tropes you got to follow in a mystery or crime novel. The other reason is I like researching crime, and while it may not always end up being like real world crime, it's still you still put that into your horror or your thrillers or your fantasies. Just they're robbing the coach instead of the bank truck.
So I love the fact that, I mean, if you write any story, you want conflict, okay? There has to be conflict. Well, we only call things a crime that are against laws that we've written. So like here in Georgia, if I pulled out a rolled tote, started smoking it, I'm in big trouble. It's not legal here in Georgia. California, the cop would look at me, roll his eyes, and walk away. But that gives me a great deal of, I can make up conflict by making anything I want a crime. I can make it so that if you put your left shoe on first, you get the death penalty. And so it gives you a lot of flexibility to create some really interesting consequences without breaking any laws of physics or anything, because society decides what's wrong and what's right, or maybe more accurately, the society you currently live in decides what's acceptable or what's not.
Griffin?
Absolutely, and also, oftentimes you can explore a change in the law is all of a sudden now making for opportunities or making for more oppression, and the only right thing for your characters to do is to go ahead and go against that grain. There's so much exciting fun to be had with exploring real-world crime, porting it into your fantasy world. It's a lot of possibilities because not everybody is willing to pay for what they want. But one thing that people don't understand is that oftentimes you're going to pay. There's no way that you're not going to pay. It's just what you're paying with and how. And the stakes can be as small as stealing a wheel of cheese, or as big as Ranthar's hammer.
Well, stealing a wheel of cheese is easy. You just put a bucket on their head first. Sorry, Skyrim reference. So for me, I generally like to, when I'm writing, explore all sorts of aspects of life and the characters, and that's, love and romance and death and all sorts of emotional states, but crime and transgression and what is taboo and the cultures around it is much a part of that. So I often find myself weaving in those sorts of themes regardless of whether the intention is to make a crime drama, but also just making a good old heist. Heist movies are fun. Crime, shockingly fun. So transgression, incredibly fun. So, they just are natural things to pick up and play with when I'm writing a book.
Okay, there are plenty of seats up front and in the middle of the rows, so don't feel like you have to go into the back of the room. Lots and lots of seats. Okay, so since Tony jumped us ahead,
Sorry.
I'm leaping to this question next.
No.
Okay, so I'm an extreme linear writer. I start with the title and then the first line, and when I get to the end, I stop. And I do that with all the mysteries and crime fiction I write as well, even though I kind of do a little outlining, but I have to discover who the bad guys are. And I usually discover that about 3/4 of the way into the book, and then I go back and fix anything that I needed to add in, and I edit as I go. Is that the way everybody does it? Let's find out. Jamie?
Well, I don't do it that way, but that's not surprising. I think you're going to get a different answer from every single one of us, which is one of the joys of writing in general. As for me, when I go and I'm writing specifically a crime or mystery, like that is my goal, and my next book that I'm coming up in September is exactly that. I do determine the crime, the culprit, the motivation, because it's the foundation of all. I mean, that's the foundation of most action in books, but also crime specifically, especially if you're doing a mystery. You need to tailor the mystery around uncovering these aspects. And if you don't know them ahead of time, for me, if I don't know them ahead of time, I have a very hard time making the story fit, and then you paint yourself in a corner, and then everything's terrible, and then it's a horrible mystery, nobody likes it.
Griffin?
So it depends wildly on what I'm trying to write. If it's a short story, rarely you need to outline that because you probably ought to know, but the only thing you have to reveal to the reader is what the reader needs to know to feel smarter than the protagonist, or like they're drawn along in the story. I had a throwaway line in one of my novels about how this necromancer, who's basically immortal, is talking about why she was relatively stealthy. First off, because she's dead, so she doesn't have to move or breathe or whatever. She talks about how she, at one point, was trained or was learning from one of the greatest thieves of the previous age. So that was the genesis of the short story. A Goddess in Red, and you basically have now. Okay, well, so what was that story about? Okay, let's play with that, and it's a heist. So, what are they after? Oh, they're after the crown jewels of the Duchess. Go from there.
I just have to say on those throwaway lines, they have saved my butt so many times.
They're the ones that get on the t-shirts.
Yes, that too. Honestly, for me, a lot of it just simply depends on the type of story. I will use a crime such as a kidnapping to start a domino chain of events. But if I'm doing a cozy mystery, which I've got one, a lot of it depends on genre. With urban fantasy, sci-fi, I can take you 5,000 ways. And the best story is when you don't know what's going to happen next. If I'm writing something like a cozy mystery or a romance, there are very specific things I have to do in a very specific order to really make the story work. And so when I'm doing that sort of stuff, I have to plan it a lot more tightly, whereas sometimes with urban fantasy or sci-fi stuff, my characters can go a lot more wild because it doesn't have to be as specific of a beat set.
And it's more about meeting readers' expectations rather than, because the story, your war stories always work, but it's whether or not it meets the reader's expectations for that subgenre when they pick it up.
Yeah, like if I told you, oh, here's a romance, and at the end of the story, both people end up on separate planets never speaking to each other, it's not a romance. And trust me, there's a reason I quit reading Danielle Steele, because she did that to me. I still haven't forgiven it. It's been darn near 40 years.
What's interesting though is that in crime, as a big genre, you can go. There's a lot of ways to go, but there are specific types of crimes, like was mentioned earlier, like a heist. Heist stories have very specific beats that you have to hit, or the story just won't work.
Yep.
Right.
Tony?
Yes, so mine is a story, or my process is a little bit different, because I'm writing an audio drama that's being performed, and we have a cast, and when you have other humans involved, you don't always necessarily have the plan up front because things happen. Actors get recast, actors do silly things, and they're no longer actors for whatever reason. So I had Lady Sherlock planned out to be a 10-episode series, and I knew kind of up front what the overall story was, and then like each episode has its own little mystery to keep people going if they only come and see the show once. But then one of the actors in a major role something happened, and for reasons he couldn't do it anymore. I had to change my whole outline, which actually I think enriched the story because now we have a different villain, we have a different motives, but the beats, I still had to kind of outline that again, once the company reached out to me and said, hey, this person's no longer involved, redo your story. So I had to redo that. Horror stuff is, I don't outline like, like a 1, 2, 3. I generally write the first draft, and that's kind of my outline. And then, through the editing process, I polish it and clean it up. And some people, I know, but for me that works because I like to be surprised too when I'm writing it. And when I'm writing a horror that's not a mystery, that doesn't have to hit certain tropes, then that surprises me when I find out who dies and who didn't.
Stuart?
So, it's like, first of all, everybody is a plotter and a pantser. It's just where you do it in the process.
Right.
And also, it will vary, even when you have your process set up, it will vary from project to project, just based on the needs. But, I'm a plotter for the most part, and I do it usually like a chapter by chapter plot, just like a couple sentences for each chapter. But for my Max Porter books, those books, I take real history of North Carolina where I live, usually odd, strange history, and I mix it with witches and ghosts, curses and magic. So I also have this added research period in the beginning where I'm trying to find, usually a crime, some sensational crime from 1890 something or whatever, and to try and incorporate that. And it's interesting because I need to find a crime that has holes in it that we don't know what happened, so I can fill in the holes with my witches or my ghosts.
Right.
And so it's like you're trying to find unsolved cases in a lot of ways where I can make up what the solution is. So that's kind of a different aspect of it.
There are plenty of seats up front if people are looking. Okay, great. So my next question.
Can I? Yeah. Does everybody know what a plotter and a pantser is? Because we're throwing these terms out like.
Okay. A plotter is someone who outlines. They're going to outline in various ways, either very detailed or very relaxed. Scene sewers are people who, Diana Gabaldon of the Outlander series is actually a scene sewer. She writes the scenes and she sees them in her head, and then when she's written all the scenes she thinks she's going to write, she figures out where they go in order. And then there are the linear writers or the pantsers, and those of us who are discovery writers, where, like I said, you start with the title of the first line, and don't you give me that word.
No, basically, plotters are like from lawful neutral and
Pantsers
are chaotic.
We're all chaotic. We're all very chaotic.
Very chaotic.
We want to discover what happens.
I mean,
Now,
that's fair.
I can't remember who said it. Somebody said it, but I think it was Stuart. We're all, especially the farther you go, editing with a traditional publishing with an editor. Many oftentimes requires writing a scene and sewing it in. You have to learn that if your editor wants it, or removing a scene and fixing that so that it seems seamless. If you do work for hire, you're going to have to outline because they want to know exactly where you're going. I'm kind of joking because in my mystery series right now, my co-writer is not a linear writer. And she's the junior writer, I'm the senior writer, and she was just like, you've got to give me something. So James Patterson very generously shared his outlining at a master class she went to, and I'm like, I can do that. It's basically this chapter this happens, this chapter this happens. And I can kind of do that because it still feels discovery-like that I'm going to fill in those chapters and maybe I'm going to make it different. But it allows her to fill in chapters and not cry every night.
It's more of a summary paragraph.
Yeah, it's like make sure this line is said, make sure this is the blending line, cliffhanger line of it.
So there's a lot of reasons to do, as a writing crime, there's a lot of reasons to be a plotter because it helps you so much if you're going to, especially if you're going to do like a fair game type of mystery, you then know where the clues need to be so that you're not cheating.
I know where to do that. Every pantser in the world. I don't rewrite except one book. Every pantser in the world knows where the clues have to be. We just do it differently. It's how we're wired. We're not wrong. You're not.
I didn't say you were wrong.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
it's
this
just
is
we know.
why I think it's, again, we all do it all. So
However
here's the
it works
thing.
for you.
As a plotter, I do all my pantsing in my head, and I just don't write out 10,000 words and go, oh, now I know what the book is about. Which, you know, and with
wait, okay, I'm gonna say right now, man, that is incredibly insulting.
that's not bad to me.
But it is. Oh, I wrote 10,000 words and now I know where I'm going. I know where I'm going.
Well, okay.
I know where I'm going when I start.
You are a seasoned
So is it a
author,
crime?
but I know what
where
I'm
I'm
doing.
going.
I think we're about to see a crime committed.
I know. There is a crime going.
what's the
I'd like you
punishment
all
for that
to
crime?
look away. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
They are
Yeah,
filming
you're my good
The Irishman
friend.
panel is later tonight.
First of all, we're our
We are
friends.
friends. Yes, we are friends. Yeah.
There's a lot of play going on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we were friends.
We were friends. We were friends. I'm still good friends with everybody else on the panel. So, other than Stuart,
Stuart will be getting asked anyway.
yes, Stuart will, it's not going to sit in the corner. I know, starting with Stuart, there's a variety of different kinds of crime, and he actually alluded to that. There's cozy mystery, there's darker mystery, there's noir, there's heists, there's war heists. I mean, you can do every blend. We're going to start with favorite going down that way and least favorite coming back. Okay? So so everybody gets to think for a second, because I'm going to share. I love heists. I love heists as long as the bad guys win. Because we're following the bad guys in a heist. Okay? I want to have bad guys I love and can sink my teeth into, and they win at the end. Ocean's 11. Not the original. That's a piece of junk. It was terrible, but it was for the day. You know, crime can't pay. I want crime to pay in a heist. I want to see it pay big. I want it to be fun and funny and witty, and the Ocean's movies just do that for me. They are my jam. And I try to write in that way when I'm doing a heist. So that's...
Crown, too.
Oh yeah, all of those, yeah. Those are my favorites. Okay, so we're doing favorites. What is your favorite to do of the vast array?
For me, noir is noir mystery, noir, any kind of crime, but with that noir motif around it. It's what I fell in love with originally, and was the impetus for the books I write that are in that genre, you know, the urban fantasy genre. So, noir.
And what? I should say, because I said why, but I didn't say
So I came to noir through film, as most people do, and so the aesthetic is just really cool. As a kid, I just liked the tough guy, Mike Hammer type character, and then I also was introduced as a kid. Steve Martin put out "Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid," which is just such is the great way to parody and homage something you love, and so there's some reasons why.
Yeah, I'm actually noir anything. Harry Strange is definitely a noir private eye. He talks to the audience, you know, and then I did this, and then I did that. And yeah, so any type of the noir, again, Nicky Spillane grew up with that. And I like noir because unlike James Bond, right, who has the power of the state behind him, noir is one guy against the system almost always. And sometimes it ends well, and most of the time it doesn't. So that's kind of where my heart lies.
Okay, Mel?
So I'm going to approach this differently. I actually prefer it when the crime tends to be the MacGuffin, where, yeah, that's what you're paying attention to, but it's the least important part of the entire thing. A great example is Army of the Dead, where they're going into a zombie-surrounded Las Vegas to bring. So technically, the entire thing is that crime. That has nothing to do with the actual story. The actual story is everything else going on and all the character interaction. That, for me, is much more fun as opposed to the crime being the centerpiece of the story.
Okay. Griffin?
Well, a heist can be anything. You can go from, if I steal your life, you know, and it's difficult to do so. So there's incredibly successful stories about assassins right now, especially in the YA sphere. And that's what they're doing. They're thieving the lives of people. obviously an assassin's going to be kind of the bad guy. But I do beg to differ that any heist is going to be the bad guys winning. Because if you look at the rebellion in Star Wars, their basically heist is to, we're going to take this Death Star out, and they ain't the bad guys. So they can be the anti-hero, or they can actually be the hero, depending on how bad the state is. And the state is what decides what is a crime and what is not. So if you're just taking it because you can, and nobody's going to hold it over you, it's not necessarily going to be a crime. So definitions are going to matter within this sphere. So I would say definitely heist. I write a lot of noir. But it's also one of those things that's more of a subgenre than it is a specific crime or something like that. But obviously, what my esteemed panelists were saying as well is against the state. So, or without the power of the state behind you, caught between a rock and a hard place. And most criminals think that that's what their only option is to commit that crime in order to survive and get ahead. And that's certainly as far as the theft is concerned.
Okay, Jamie,
Well-
remember, it's gonna come back around.
So I just do both at once.
Yes,
Because I can do two things at
I
once.
know you can. I know you can. I have faith that you can handle this spin.
Well, this is simple. My favorite is noir. Matter of fact, I'm finishing editing one now that comes out later this month. Oh my god, I need to finish and hit my deadlines. But noir is my favorite. I grew up with Dashiell Hammett. Maltese Falcon was one of my favorite movies. And you just absorb that. The idea of someone fighting a corrupt system, and whatever that system is always appealing to me. My least favorite, this is actually just the specific crimes, is a whole actual subgenre in itself, is kidnapping. I don't mind, kidnapping as a concept, I see the tension, I understand it. I just don't, it's weird. I don't mind murders, but kidnappings make me a little I just think about them just kind of triggers something I can't really, I'm actually a little too creeped out to write them properly. I get too invested in the victims, and I can't do it.
Griff, the one you name.
Well, I don't necessarily know that there's a whole lot of it out there, but I hate the absence of punishment. The absence of an actual clear signs that, if they don't do this or they don't do it right, they're going to get smoked. There are a few people that have done it really well. Liza Lockamora is good. It's accomplishing that heist at a cost. And it also does the whole switcheroo. The heist isn't really what you thought it was. I'm not stealing this for me. I'm stealing this to make a sacrifice to my God. And you don't know that. I'm sorry, spoiler alert. It's almost 20 years old. But
Shunned
It's
forever.
been on my TV archive for that long. Literally, the book is sitting on my shelf.
So in any case, the challenge there is that people don't consider. They say, "Oh, it's a crime." But okay, so where's the punishment? Who is it that's setting the rules that indicate that this is going to be a crime?
I mean, when it comes to reading it, my least favorite is the sort of Agatha Christie movies where there's, somebody find a dead body and you sit there and do it. And I say that at the same time, I absolutely love cozy mysteries, which are kind of the same thing. I just, unless the death actually has a purpose for me in the story, I find it really boring. I don't know, that and writing it, I detest going backwards and trying to seed in. I mean, if any of you have read about Agatha Christie, that's literally what she would do. She'd write the entire book, decide who she wanted to be the killer, and then go back through the book and do all of these things to leave little tiny hints to who she had.
And what's wrong with it? Says the girl doing the exact same
No,
thing.
no, that is not I hate that it is done. That is I hate doing it, which is a totally different thing. Because, I mean, if you can pull it off, it's wonderful, and they make great stories. I just write it that way. My problem is my brain, when I reach that last chapter, this book's done. My brain doesn't care anymore. It's already off on the next thing that it wants to write. And so having to go back and tweak and fix stuff, it's worse than climbing the hill from the Hilton.
But
That's
is
pretty
it worse
serious.
than climbing the hill from the courtroom?
That's it.
I feel really disconnected.
So I have a least favorite, and I have mixed feelings about this one. I like a good serial killer, but I don't like a brilliant, if you look at the Saw movies, they lost me after the first one, right? Because it's like the entire police department can't figure out what's going on. I mean, you know, you're a serial killer, you're not, you know, I don't know what kind of Home Depot account this guy has, but it just stretches the credibility. Now, I'm not like the Joker, like if we're in Batman or that kind of universe, cool, I'm down with that. But Saw, that and those type of killers are supposed to take place in the real world, right? Even the swamp, not swamp, the summer camp killers, right? You can tell me like Jason, like 40 of y'all can't get up and just beat the hell out of this guy or tie him up or something. Not Michael again. Michael Myers is supernatural. I get it. Jason, I guess, eventually became supernatural, but you can tell me that somebody couldn't figure out, hey, we're getting killed one by one. Maybe we should stick together and take out Mrs. Voorhees and no more movies. So it's when the serial killer becomes this brilliant. That's when it bothers me, because every serial killer gets caught. I mean, there's probably I don't know if everyone does, but there's probably Hannibal Lecter was kind of a borderline for me because he was caught. I mean, they did catch him, right? But you know, he was still like, you know, masterminding things from behind the bars. So, and I always put that more in fantasy because it was just, you know, and everybody wanted to be Hannibal.
They don't always get caught.
Thank you. Wait. Thank you for bringing us around to the proper statement for the track. Thank you, Tony. Fantasy.
Fantasy, yes, okay.
For me, so I can like a good murder. I like all the things that you all said you like. I like those things. And what I really dislike, mainly, well, besides that it's horrifying, is that it's lazy writing, is when a writer starts leaning on rape and leaning on it as either motivation for a vengeance kind of serial killer, or it's because it's such a horrific thing. It's like I said, it's lazy writing. It's the easiest thing to go do that will make. You can even hear it. Everyone got a little comfortable when I said that, and it's just the word is. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's going to make you uncomfortable. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I know I can manipulate that. That's the word. It makes me feel manipulated as a reader. And I'm like, all these other things, I don't know what it says about our society, but hearing about a murder, no matter how gruesome, I'm not going to feel as manipulated.
Right. It's the girl in the refrigerator.
See, I can handle that better than I can to kill a pet.
Oh, yeah.
To kill a pet, it's a DNF for me. I almost just close the book and throw it away.
Which gives me, I have to give my plug for this. If you've not seen it, have you all heard of Don't Fuck with Cats?
No.
Okay, I'm surprised that there's usually half of them. Okay, it's a documentary, it's on Netflix. But it's a fascinating mystery kind of thing. It's basically, this is all real. Some asshole kid years ago online was killing cats. And the whole point is you don't fuck with cats because there were a bunch of just people, just regular, people in their homes, house moms and dads, and they all start talking to each other on the internet, trying to track down who this guy was, and using clues like there would be because of the video, if you look, there's like a plug, and is that a European plug or is it an American plug? And they track him down, and it's wild.
Nice.
So, but yeah. So if you do, animal cruelty
It's a
is
DNF
hard.
for me. I mean, you can go hunting, I'm fine, but if you kill a pet, and you can just
Right.
say, and I shot the dog and move on, and I'm probably okay. You do any description, no, I'm done.
Yeah,
Never kill a dog.
Never kill a dog.
Or the cat.
Or the cat. Don't kill a pet.
Don't kill a pet, right?
Don't kill a kid.
But, I was going to say, the
Well,
kid owns
I mean,
the
I'm
pet
going
is
to say
pro-baby.
the lovely bones. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. The
right.
whole thing is everything we said we didn't like.
Right.
But it's well done. For me, I honestly really am. I used to like it, and I'm just so sick of cybercrime stuff. Ooh, the collective is in your thing. I just don't want to give them any more attention than they're already getting. And it's just, ooh, the hackers, it's like, all they want to steal is your ID. I don't think they're trying to kill us. I think they're just trying to make all the money and make it, sorry about that, oh, did I slap one of them? Sorry. Make it really uncomfortable for everybody else. I just see them as annoying more than anything, and so when you make the big cyber killer, it turns sort of into, you know, the brilliant serial killer. It's just, it's very hard to be excited about someone hiding behind a shadowy screen, right? You know, and then you find out it's the teenager next door. So I really don't like, I'm not big on the cyber crime. So we are at a point where if you guys would like to ask questions, questions please, if you've got comments, or want to tell us about the greatest movie you saw, that's for later in the panel, if we have time. It can be, if you want to comment and say you guys are awesome and then go into your question, that's cool. So please raise your hands up high and I'll get you. Yes, ma'am.
That way, Jenny, we're gonna get microphones because it's
Oh,
recorded.
okay, great. So hold on a moment, so you're gonna stand up for the mic. So this lady's first, and anybody else who has questions, please just feel free to line up behind her.
And if you need assistance, we'll get somebody to carry the mic over to you.
So I've discovered cozy mysteries. Thank you for writing them. I don't feel quite so ashamed for reading them.
There's no shame
There's
for
no shame on
anything
cozy,
you
yeah.
enjoy.
Thank
Great.
you.
No shame for anything you enjoy.
Thank you. One of my pet peeves, and I am hoping that y'all as mystery writers avoid this as much as possible, is the detective, police officer, cozy, new Miss Marple, does not solve the crime in 24 hours. I see that more and more and more. It turned me off of Patricia Cornwall. What do y'all do to look at, especially from a police perspective, the amount of time it really takes to solve a crime, and you do something a bit more realistic than he wakes up and solves the crime?
Hello, Mr. Police Officer.
So there's two ways to kind of approach that. From a writing perspective, is one of the coolest things, and again, it requires punishment, is to have them standing over the body with the dagger, but still asserting their innocence. And now we pretty much have them. We like know, but how do we prove it under our laws, whatever they may be? And was it intentional, that kind of thing. You can play around with a lot of that. But that being said, yes, everything takes a long time, but a lot of that would be very boring. One of the occasions that I had like literal snort laughing was the remake of The Thief, where Rebecca De Mornay is the homicide detective, lieutenant, and she had to shoot somebody in a shootout in a bar, restaurant. And she's signing off all this paperwork, and her sergeant's hovering over her as she's doing it. She's like, if I would have known that this took so long, all this paperwork, I wouldn't have shot him. And that's one of the things. So if you can work it in a humorous fashion, like, oh man, wasn't that exhausting? Or the next scene is, 2 days later, the officer or the investigator is like, smoked and didn't see the fact, didn't see what, the clue that was there because they were exhausted.
I'm
Nothing.
sorry, keep going.
Nothing ever happens at the beginning of your shift. So we're already in a major crime. The street officer who's taking that initial report or that arrives on that scene initially, if it happens at the end of your shift, which is why most officers at the end of their shift are like, I don't see any of that. I didn't see that at all, because you're going to be there for another 7 hours.
The other fun thing that is happening now is that some of these tests really are coming back fast. I mean, hopefully most of us have medical insurance. If you go and get a blood test now, I get the results before my doctor does. Sometimes I get the results before I had made it home from the lab. And so there's some things now that are way faster than they used to be. However, genetic sequencing, it takes a long time.
And this being a more fantasy-focused track, if you have that science, you have that
And waiting.
magic going on where you can track something like that, then you have to figure out ways to block that, which can be a fun mental exercise and also make, again, your reader more engaged with it, because they know that you have this power that allows you to detect bone density in somebody by echolocation, whatever it is.
We do have the issue that we're writing fiction that's supposed to be entertaining. So while we don't want to ruin it for you by making it seem too easy. If it takes a year, Miss Marvel, we'll be all taking naps. We don't want to do that either. We want to keep it going.
Yeah,
One of the cooler things that you can do in series writing is you can have a crime that goes unsolved in that first one that's kind of ancillary or it's a different scene. And later on, that person comes back and they're like, oh, wait, it was my partner the whole time.
Right. And don't invite Aurora Teagarden to any weddings. Never do so.
Yeah. Okay, next.
Okay, we mentioned way earlier that most heist or crime stories are kind of formulaic. Have y'all found spots where throwing that story into a fantasy setting kind of breaks the formula, or you have to really twist things to make it still kind of work the same?
Fantasy and any sort of adding any genre fiction elements to something lets you play a lot with the formulas. You're still having to follow them a lot of the times, but you can follow them in interesting ways. You can mix them up. You can break them. It's usually really hard, in my opinion. Adding genre elements doesn't necessarily break it on its own. It's not hard to make it a fantasy heist and follow all the rules. Though it gives you a lot more tools of playing with the rules.
I think you can have a lot more fun with it in that you can change up certain things, but just like Jamie said, and I'm sure the others would agree, if it's crime, if it's mystery, if it's capers, there are still beats that readers expect to follow. Just like in, your thing, it's supposed to be fast. Thrillers, quite frankly, should take 3 days to a week. 7 Days of the Condor turned into 3 Canes of the Condor for the movie, but it's still only a week because you're racing against time. It keeps your reader tightly involved. If it's like, 6 weeks later,
Right.
why are you still reading? Okay, and that's part of the reason why they're doing very fast. But I agree with you. And the same thing with fantasy. If it's like, oh, and poof, my sorcerer knows who did it. What is the point? There's no point. It has to be challenging for the
And there's also
protagonist.
some historical references too.
One of the interesting things when you mix these genres is sometimes you have to balance out where they don't mix. So I have a trilogy that's high fantasy and mystery brought together. And in high fantasy, or a lot of science fiction in fantasy, we loathe the info dump, right? You've heard writers talk about this all the time. But in a typical mystery where we're going to have an interrogation, that's all that is. It's just asking questions and getting answers in its base form. So it's okay in one genre to do essentially that type of info dump. It's not okay to do it in another, and you're trying to do both at the same time, and it becomes a delicate balance of trying to figure out how can I signal to the reader that this is okay over here, and then now we're not going to do that over here.
Right. And just because you have certain... Okay.
When it comes to not getting caught, what is your law enforcement? If you look at a Western European medieval set, there is no real law enforcement aside from your sheriff and your reeve, and their training is going to be non-existent. But if you kind of port into, say, Korea at the same era, earlier, many hundreds of years earlier, you actually have professional police forces. India, same thing. China, same thing. So you can actually, depending on what your culture is based on, you can kind of compensate or use some of the more modern techniques that you might see currently, based on the fact that this is an actual organization that has a professional memory and standards, and that uses those standards and everything to torture your tropes or make them, even though it's medieval, it has a modern essence to it, so long as you make sure that you make reference to the fact that, this guy's a legacy. His great-grandfather was a cop in the same place, investigating the vampire crimes.
Great. I'm stopping you. Tony, real quick.
Yes, just real
We're
quick.
running out of time, and we've got 3 more questions.
Just because you have the beats, right? You have to, a heist movie, you have to bring them together. Doesn't mean you have to bring them together the same way everyone else did, right? Hit those beats, but do it your way. That's where the uniqueness is. Romeo and Juliet love story, we still write love stories. We still write.
It's not a love story.
Not
It's
love
a
story.
tragedy.
I know. Just a high level college thing. But we still, you bring your own. What you bring to it is what makes those tropes different to each time through.
Next.
We've talked of crimes and heists, but what of hijinks? Do you have hijinks that you've written, or are there hijinks in other medias that you've really enjoyed?
I write hijinks all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. My characters get into trouble, and it's funny because I like to make people laugh and like to laugh myself. So hijinks are very fun. They can go into anything. Your plucky comic relief helps if you've got that and everything else. So most of my writing has something like that in it, yeah, especially as Jimmy Koch. Anything else?
That's one of those where I mentioned that it depends on what is a crime for wherever you are. You can get into some really just absolutely silly things like, how dare you wear purple today? This is the non-purple day. And just, you'll have absolutely ridiculous things happen. Yeah, because you can tell how much I hate the color purple, and I get in trouble all the time. But that's where you get to do a lot of the hijinks and silly things. For me, I usually have my straight man be a non-human creature. Literally, one of the running jokes is he's a familiar, and his mage will have to fight somebody. He's like, so when you defeat him, do I get to eat him? And she's like, I don't think human flesh tastes as good as you think it does. And hot sauce solves everything. Okay, so you get to do some things.
Jamie?
Part of the heist can also be the hijinks that's going on in the middle of the street. It's a distraction. It's part of the crime itself. And you're able to have all that fun while the serious crime is going on over here. And we're going to distract you with the left hand and do our thing with the right.
Yeah, Jamie, I know you do some of them.
Yeah, just the fact you can, just say, you can make the whole thing into comedic caper. Heists can be funny, both from pure ridiculousness, as Mel saying, but could just be a bunch of like barely competent thieves bumbling their way through, opposed by almost equally incompetent law enforcement, and you have a caper, and that's like a classic. So
A good example of it, because I've been trying to think of the movie, was the Tower Heist, where a bunch of employees find out that they're 401k pensions, and so they rob the guy's house. So that's an excellent example of all of these put together.
Great. Next question.
So we touched on timing as it affects these types of stories. My question is specifically around heists. Do you find a hard time constraint to be an interesting complication, or just kind of right at this point?
I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
there needs to be pressure,
Right.
strong pressure, and time is the best kind of pressure.
Yeah.
And
One of the clocks are awesome.
One of the best of it is movement. The target's only here for a certain amount of time. The most recent, all of the Ocean's movies, they all have that, right? The money's only there on the fight night, or it's the only time we're gonna be able to do our thing on the fight night, or in the last one, the gala.
And this is where it comes, like, understanding the beats of a heist in this case is important, because that time constraint is for the execution of the heist. But there will be a long beats before of the preparation and the understanding of the setup for that moment can be a lot, well, could be months. And there's, I forget the English show, there's a Korean heist show that they take, I think, a year or a year and a half getting all the pieces in place for that 10-minute window, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that is a way you can stretch it out to build up that potential.
Yeah. Next.
I came in a few minutes late, so I'm sorry if you've already answered this one, but how do you tell yourself to stop? Like, you've done enough research, just write it.
I've got it.
It's a little blood spatter pattern.
So
I actually time
That's a
it.
whole panel.
This
I
is
time
where you look at what your balance in your checking account is and realize it has way too few zeros. But by the way, your costume is absolutely amazing.
I think an actionable thing, an actionable way to look at it could be this, is as you're writing and you have to research to answer a question, the moment you have the answer to the question that the reader needs, you can stop and move on.
I actually set a timer. I actually set a timer because if I don't, if it's interesting, I'll just keep going. So I usually set an
Damn,
alarm
self-control then.
be up for like 30 minutes, to an hour, depending on how long I think it's going to take. And when that goes off, I can finish the sentence I'm reading and then I'm done.
So YouTube is dangerous because I was researching my current trilogy set in Victorian England. There is actually a video of a gal going through all the different skirts, the hoop skirts, the bustles, and showing how you go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, this makes no sense. How do you get all the... And it's absolutely fascinating. And she's fully clothed, but she's showing you how you lift the hoop skirts up this way, you lift the bustle up like this. YouTube is darn near everything. When you're trying to find out something simple, like how in the world do you go to the bathroom in a hoop skirt? And pantaloons, and what happens when you're on your period, when you're in that era. YouTube is amazing. The biggest problem, those little suggested videos.
I will say directly to your thing that the easiest way to learn is you just do it, like do the research and then write it, and you will realize how little of your research you actually end up using. How little, if it just doesn't, unless you're determined to use it all, which is not a good thing. But you will spend, you'll be like, oh, I spent all day, and that accounted for 2 sentences. So the next time, you'll stop yourself.
Yeah, my writing partner is like, she'll say, I did all the research, look, and I'm like, great. Now that you've written the research, cut it, put it in our deletes document, and thank you, I do have the 1 sentence we need.
Right.
So Stuart's absolutely right. You're going to learn as you go along where to stop.
And for more in-depth research for like alternate history or something like that, where you're actually like trying to get really, really right, Eric Flint had a wonderful rule. If 7 a-holes are going to challenge you on it, those 7 a-holes can go pounce on.
Yeah. I also recommend
if the general
compare
public is
3.
like, hell yes, that's the way I want to do it, or that sounds reasonable to me, we're good to go.
I always use 3 volume. I also write alternate histories, so I use 3 different comparative research things. So if 2 agree and 1 doesn't, I go with the majority. And if they all agree, I feel reasonably confident, even though I seriously have a book that lists, for the Old West, lists Ed Masterson's date of death in 2 different months in the same year, and they aren't close months, and it's in the same volume. So you really have to check a lot of stuff. So I think, are our last question.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I'm thinking about the market for, I love all these things, heist, mystery, murder, the whole thing. Where are the sort of the dyads between the genre and the content, like that are the most popular or growing? For example, you've got fantasy, science fiction, paranormal, romance.
Well, romantasy is big right now, but don't write to trends.
Right, well, I know don't write to trends, but I'm just curious, are there things that, are fantasy readers really into heist, or paranormal people into murder?
There is a wonderful company run by a man named Alex Newton called Kalytics, K-Lyitcis. He literally does reports on this on a monthly basis. So you can go and say, okay, here's urban fantasy and its intersection with mysteries on how much, because he goes into Amazon and scrapes sales data every single day. And so it will totally tell you what's up and coming. Because you can see zombies, way up here. And then you see them start to go like this. And then you will see other stuff go like this.
But if you're,
Kalytics.
But by the time your book's done, it won't matter.
right.
I get that, I'm just curious.
Okay.
I'm a reader and I read everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I really want to stress, do not write to trends.
Yeah,
You
if
will
you're
not
watching the
catch
wave-
that trend.
If you're watching the wave from surfing,
Behind the wheel.
you're behind
Yeah.
it.
But we can say, in terms of the last 100 years of data, romance has always been number 1. Mystery has usually been number 2.
Mystery, thriller, suspense.
As
Mystery, thriller, suspense.
As an all-encompassing thing. And then
Science fiction,
and fantasy
or
are.
But the sort of the deeper question though, and I'm not really getting at how do I write something to make money. I'm
Right.
trying to get at, are there beats in the different genres that just don't align with the heist. Like paranormal, I could see.
I can make
mystery,
anything
murder.
work.
You can make
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's our job. It's our job. I can make a heist work in any genre.
Right.
The biggest advantage of stuff like that, especially for anybody like Jenny, me, Stuart, who has a backlist, is I happen to look at the report and go, huh, they're having, supernatural westerns is starting to tick up. Maybe I should recover my supernatural western and run an ad on it.
Yeah.
Because that is, so,
That's just marketing.
yeah, that's just marketing. And some people can write fast enough to write to market, but most of the time that tends to be the shorter romances, like 50,000 words and less.
Okay, and we're at the point where we're almost out of time, so I would like all of our panelists to say, we're going to start with Jamie and work down to say where everybody can find you after Dragon Con, so like your website, and what you're doing for the rest of Con.
Right, so you can find me on the web at jdgarnerwrites.com. I'm JD Garner Writes on most social media. You can find me in those places. Also, you can find my book specifically. I recently signed with a fabulous new publisher, Ginger Blue Publishing. You can get my books through them at gingerbluepublishing.com. That's correct. Yes, and also as for DragonCon, I have one more. We're all going to be trucking over to the Western Overlook for signings as a big old happy family. Then after that, my last panel is at 7 p.m. It's Global Without Limits, transforming LGBTQ representation here in the Hyatt.
Griffin?
It can be found at griffinbarber.com, although I woefully do not update that very often. Griffin Barber on Facebook, also Griffin Barber author, Griffin_Barber author on Instagram. And my books can be found where better books are sold, etc. I'm going to be also at the Overlook, as my esteemed colleague said. And then tomorrow I have another signing at the Missing Volume. I'm done for cons for this year. So to see you.
No?
You can find me pretty much everywhere at Bad Ash Books, and note that that's the tree, not what I'm sitting on. And I have a booth in the dealer room. It's 2125. Please come see it. I have urban fantasy, urban science fiction. We have a little bit of everything. And like everybody else, after the panel's over and they go to the bathroom, I'm headed to the Westin Overlook.
I am Tony the Scribe on all the socials. You can find Harriet Strange, the Harriet Strange radio drama on your favorite aggregator. I have anthologies available out at Amazon, and I will be at the book signing like the rest of the gang here. And then tomorrow I will be managing fear and overcoming adversity in horror fiction in the West End.
Shockingly, my website is stuartjaffe.com, so you can find me there. I'm also on Facebook and some other places. But obviously we'll be at the signing, which none of them have said it, so I will say, you should all come, because if you want to see how we actually put into practice the crap we've been saying for the last hour, you can buy our books and find out.
Buy our books.
Buy our books.
I'll be at the roll panel tomorrow, I think it's at 10 a.m. And as far as other cons, the next really big one would be GalaxyCon Columbus in Ohio.
And I'm at JinnyKoch.com. You can find all my socials from there. I too, shockingly, will be at the Western Overlook. I'm also in booth 2125 with Mel, with all of my well, not everything, but many wares, science fiction, mystery, thriller, suspense, hijinks, capers. Tonight I will be back in this room for at 8:30 for the Take Me to the Punnery panel. Please come.
What is that called?
It's supposed to be funny. Take thee to the punnery.
Oh, nice.
It's all puns. Please come and help me. Save me. And tomorrow, based on one of the things that you asked, in Embassy EF, so it's one of these over there, at 2:30 I'll be in the panel, and where in the world is fiction going next? That will answer your question. We have a bunch of people who are actually paying attention to that on the panel. And I have a signing again at somewhere, 12 to 1 at the missing volumes. So I'm pretty much everywhere back and forth. So thank you all very much. I hope some of you come with us to the Western Overlook, and I hope we see you around. You've been a lovely audience, and we're out.